I'm Brandi Kruse. Coming up today on Undivided, I knew Seattle's new mayor reminded me of someone, and I finally put my finger on it. Also, soon you could be paying those Starbucks baristas to go on strike. And as socialism expands, expect a tax on big business to ramp up. That and much more coming up today on Undivided. Remember, you can support our show for just $5 a month by signing up at undividedpod.com. That's undividedpod.com. Click on the banner that says support the show and join us this Sunday, November 23rd at a super signer rally with Let's Go Washington. We're going to be collecting signatures for two initiatives, one to protect parental rights, the other one to protect fairness in girls sports. That's Sunday, November 23rd in Issaquah at Cougar Mountain Middle School. Hello, and welcome to Undivided. I'm Brandi Kruse. Thank you for being here. Thank you so much for your commitment to giving common sense a comeback. Well, we saw acceptance speeches from, winning candidates, but Katie Wilson, who's going to be the next mayor of Seattle. Also, interestingly, and I didn't pull this, it's funny how once you lose an election, you become an election denier. Did you see that? Bruce Harrell, the incumbent mayor of Seattle who lost, all of a sudden, he's like, things aren't adding up. Weird how the Democrats, as soon as they lose a race, they're all of a sudden an election denier. But Katie Wilson gave her acceptance speech. Rather than make you sit through the entirety of it, I boiled it down to 3 seconds.
I want. And
I was watching that and it reminded me of something. I said, you know who she reminds me of? I finally put my finger on it. Veruca Salt. Daddy, I want a golden goose. I want the world. I want the whole world. I don't care how. I want it now. Something like that. I mean, spot on. I was watching, I wish we could play it, but for copyright reasons we can't. But she's going around, I want this and I want that. Reminded me a lot of Katie Wilson's speech, except this is real life, not a movie, unfortunately. Maybe not a surprise that she spent her first few days as mayor-elect with other people who share her sense of entitlement. She went on strike with those Starbucks baristas.
I am not buying Starbucks, and you should not either. And I would like to close with a message to Starbucks. This is your hometown and mine. Seattle's making some changes right now. And I urge you to do the right thing. Because in Seattle, when workers' rights are under attack, what do we do? When workers' rights are under attack, what do we do? When workers' rights are under attack, what do we do?
It might not seem significant to you, but that's a choice. That's a choice as the eyes of the nation are on her. I mean, she was on CNN. She did a lot of national appearances. People are now ramping up these comparisons between her and Mamdani. I think a lot in the legacy news, they're fawning over this 43-year-old political newcomer with no life experience who suddenly is going to lead one of the largest cities in America. But it's a choice for her to be out on the picket line with Starbucks baristas in the first few days of her officially being the mayor-elect. And her choice of words is very telling, but also it is very telling of what's to come in the months and the couple years ahead. And it's not going to be good. She tweeted out pictures of her with the Starbucks workers saying across the country, Starbucks workers are on an unfair labor practice strike for a fair first contract. And I know which side I'm on. Baristas make Starbucks an extraordinarily wealthy company. I know which side I'm on. Baristas make Starbucks an extraordinarily wealthy company. Starbucks made Starbucks an extraordinarily wealthy company. Howard Schultz made Starbucks an extraordinarily wealthy company. And in the process, he has provided tens of thousands of people across the world with jobs. Starbucks has helped make Seattle an extraordinarily wealthy city. And she's been going out on the campaign trail and she keeps repeating this line. This is your city. This is your city, acting as if she's empowering the citizens of the city. But if it's their city, it's also Starbucks city. If it's their city, it's also a city that belongs to the people who make up, the entrepreneurs who make up our business environment, the small business owners, the big business owners. But of course, she's choosing sides. It's not about everyone. It's about her side. She says, I know what side I'm on. And all of this, her, victory in the mayoral race and her being out and these Starbucks baristas taking to the picket line and closing down stores and demanding better, even though most of them in Seattle make over $20 an hour. They get benefits like free tuition and benefits after 20 hours a week. None of this is by accident. And her election comes at a most inopportune time, because remember what's going to kick in starting the first of the year. What's going to happen starting the first of the year that's relevant to this situation? You're going to start paying people like those Starbucks baristas to go on strike. Remember, Democrats in the legislature in Olympia passed a law that gives unemployment benefits to striking workers. Those benefits will kick in January of 2026. And we said at the time this was meant as a gift from Democrats to their union donors. And so we've got Starbucks baristas. They're already saying, and Katie Wilson is already saying, this could be the longest strike that these Starbucks baristas, this newly formed union, ever goes on. What are the chances they extend it into the new year, when they get to access our unemployment insurance system that employers pay into, that's designed to help people who lose their jobs through no fault of their own? All of this is by design. And now, come January 1st, the leverage will be ripped out from underneath businesses big and small. Public sector, private sector. And we're already seeing the groundwork belay this. Como News. Seattle workers rally for potential general strike and fight against the Trump administration. So over the weekend, a bunch of labor groups gathered for a town hall at the Seattle Labor Temple. This was Saturday morning. They said it was to learn about workers' untapped power and how to mobilize for a, quote, inevitable general strike. One of the organizers said, people are already lobbying. People are already marching. We want to build so that we can take workers' power and withhold it, because that can stop things. So we want to withhold our workforces. We want to withhold our work because that can change things. What do they mean by general strike? Well, you might be familiar with in 1919, there was a Seattle general strike. 65,000 workers in the city walked off the job for 5 days. This organizer and other organizers said a similar movement today is the only way workers can fight back against the Trump administration. So on Saturday, they're meeting, they're organizing, they're talking about a general strike similar to what happened in 1919, 65,000 workers walk off the job. Why do you think they're talking about it now? Why do you think this is all planned? This is all strategy. The unions pushed the Democrats to give them unemployment benefits, to take away the one piece of leverage that evens the playing field. And now we have a very pro-strike mayor at City Hall. And now we have coming up in a month and a half, these people will get unemployment benefits. They'll be paid to strike. And they're not the only ones. This is scary stuff. Moses Lake, the Moses Lake Education Association. This is going to expand. If you think this is a Seattle phenomenon, absolutely not. It says MLEA members made the difficult decision to authorize the executive board to call a strike should they not reach a tentative agreement that is ratified by Friday, November 28th, 2025. No dates have been decided concerning the potential strike, but when do you think that's going to be? You think they're going to strike during the holidays? I don't think so. They get most of that time off anyway. They are gearing up to do a strike as soon as they get back from school, from break. And they're going to wait and they're going to do it in January. Why? Because the teachers can strike and get paid. We warned everyone that this would happen. As soon as the pay for unemployment, the pay for striking workers kicks in, we're going to see teachers strike after teachers strike after teachers strike. Starbucks baristas are striking. Hell, why not a general strike? Why not have tens of thousands of workers walk off the job because they're going to be paid to do it? And this previously would be unheard of. You know, we knew for sure there'd be a ramp up in strikes of teachers and unions before the school year began. But what they're saying now is this could suspend classes mid-year. This is from the Center Square. Moses Lake may suspend classes if teachers strike over heated labor negotiations. Now think about the power that they will have on their side to get what they want. They have the power to keep kids out of classes in the middle of the year. And there is nothing to encourage them to come to the bargaining table in good faith or to get back to work, because they're not paying a financial price for it. Not only do they have, and the Washington Education Association has a pretty sizable strike fund, but they'll also get to supplement that with unemployment benefits as they picket and keep your kids out of school. And it's all because Democrats wanted to give a gift to their friends in labor in the Washington Education Association, one of the chief and among them, SEIU, because these are some of the biggest backers and contributors to their political campaigns. The unions are the ones who keep Democrats in power. All of this, we are racing toward a disaster. We are racing toward an economic disaster, and for businesses, they're racing toward a period of time where they are going to be held hostage with very little leverage by their workforces. And Democrats did it. And many of them are going to celebrate it. And we've got a mayor-elect who's out on the picket line with whiny baristas who already make over $20 an hour and get a whole slew of benefits. I talked to a woman this weekend. I didn't get permission to share this, so I won't give you too much identifying information. Works for Starbucks, has worked for Starbucks for 10 years. And I don't know her politics in this position. It doesn't frankly matter. Works in kind of a mid-level job at Starbucks corporate. But she's been going to school to learn a trade. Her family works in a trade, and she's been going to school to be part of her family's business. Starbucks is letting her take 6 months off to finish the classes that she needs to finish as part of getting licensed for that trade. They're going to hold her position for her for 6 months. She said, they told me that if I came back at the end of 6 months and I decided I didn't want to work at Starbucks anymore, they'd give me 18 months COBRA. They'd extend my COBRA benefits for 18 months. This is a company that says, hey, we want you to succeed in life. They're letting her go off. We're going to hold your job for you. No worries. Go off, explore this trade, see if it's what you want to do. If you come back after 6 months when we've held this job for you the entire time and you don't want to stay here, don't worry. We've got your back. We'll extend your COBRA benefits for you for 18 months. Unheard of. And these are the whiny baristas out there saying that they feel disposable for a company that's one of the most generous companies in Seattle. So all of this that's happened in the last 2 years has led us up to this moment. Democrats in Olympia pass a law to give unemployment benefits to striking workers when our unemployment insurance system is already stretched thin. They do it for their buddies in the unions. Now all of these people are meeting last couple months of the year. Gee, this is a weird time to be talking about striking as teachers. Last couple months of the year, talking about a general strike in Seattle. Starbucks baristas are already warning us this could be a really long strike. Moses Lake teachers are already saying, hey, we might take to the picket line middle of the year. They're all just waiting for January 1st. And come January 1st, we're going to be freaking screwed because businesses have no leverage, none. And they're going to have to give these people what they want to get them back to work. Unreal. I'm not done talking about Katie Wilson. I want to talk about some comments she made about how she's going to pay for all these things that she wants now. First, we get some great feedback on First Mark Insurance every single week. Christine sent us a great email the other day saying that she had a bit of an insurance scare by receiving a notification from her carrier that her insurance was being dropped in less than 30 days. She says the carrier was dissolving, so she decided to call up First Mark, talked through what she had for her two businesses. She said they found a way to work with an insurance company to bundle the two businesses into one plan. Then we worked on going through our home and vehicle insurance. In total, we're saving $10,000 a year, along with adding a third new vehicle to the policy. So they added a vehicle, but they're still saving $10,000 a year between their two businesses, homeowners insurance, and their additional third vehicle. Insane. $10,000 a year, all because she finally listened to my nagging and gave the First Mark Challenge a try. Firstmarkinsurance.com, firstmarkinsurance.com. The very best part is they work for you, not the insurance companies. They always have your best interest in mind, and they save Undivided viewers and listeners thousands upon thousands of dollars a year. All right, we already know that business in Seattle is not good. It really was already on a downward trajectory before the pandemic. Things got exceptionally worse during the pandemic. They still have not fully recovered, not by a long shot. And now you have a socialist in the mayor's office who genuinely hates big business. This segment is brought to you in partnership with our friends at Future 42. Turn your frustration into action at future42.org. Make sure you sign up for their newsletter to be alerted to opportunities to do just that. All right, for the sake of this story, let's revisit what is Katie Wilson's main thing again? What does she want?
I want
everything. She just wants everything. And she wants it for free. She wants all measure of free things. And so when you want that many things, how are you going to pay for it? Well, she's explained that as well.
We will need to pursue new progressive revenue in order to fund our priorities and make sure that we're delivering services to the people of Seattle. There's several progressive tax options I proposed as part of my platform, and so we're going to have city staff looking into developing those into legislation. Don't know yet exactly what the timeline is going to be on that.
At a time when taxes are higher than ever, she wants more. She wants more, and she wants it now. And when they say progressive revenue, what they want is they want to punish big businesses. They want to punish the most successful. They want to make the rich pay their fair share. And we've gone over this ad nauseum about what happens when you single out one corporation or major corporations for taxation. They have enough money to just tell you to F off. They have enough money to just say, kick rocks, we're leaving. And that's what Amazon did when you tried to punish them for the crime of being successful and creating high-paying jobs. They just started moving jobs to Bellevue. This is problematic because Katie Wilson says she stands for all these things. She wants all of these things. She wants big businesses to pay for those things. But we're in an environment where more businesses are fleeing the city than ever before. And you can tell through the occupancy rates. So this came out from a study from Colliers. The overall vacancy rate in the city of Seattle is 33.3%. A third of the office space, when you look at the skyline in Seattle, a third of the office space is vacant. Before the pandemic, it was 8%. And now, yes, some of that is attributable to work from home and the change in the American workforce overall. But let's not fool ourselves and believe that that accounts for all of it. And here's the real indicator, okay? Under construction, how many square feet of office space in Seattle? A city that just a couple years ago, you couldn't look anywhere on the skyline without seeing a massive crane building a big new building. 0 square feet of new office space is being built in Seattle. And you can't blame that on the pandemic. So first of all, why would you build new office space when you have 33% of the existing office space and business space that's not occupied? And why in the hell would any developer invest in Seattle, invest in building office space in Seattle when you have a socialist coming into the mayor's office in a city that even before the socialist has sought year after year to punish big businesses and single them out for taxation? And we've seen story after story, even the mainstream news can't ignore it anymore. These are all stories in the last week or so. Fox 13, small business owners in Washington state forced to shut down after tax increases. They talk about the owner of Spark, which is closing its business here due to the new $9 billion tax package. Eater reports swanky rooftop restaurant M Bar is closing permanently. And I love that bar. One of the coolest Seattle establishments. They also report prominent Middle Eastern restaurant Mamnoon is closing after 12 years. The popular Capitol Hill spot will shut its doors on September 14th. The Seattle Times report Seattle restaurant chain Skillet will close 3 of its upscale diners. And as far as dining is concerned, some of these are Seattle institutions, businesses that should have been celebrated as being very uniquely Seattle and so important to the city and its culture. But they can't survive. They can't survive. And this is a combination of course, the largest tax increase in state history, most of it business and occupation tax increases that was passed into law by Governor Bob Ferguson in his first 3 months on the job after he campaigned and told all of you and lied through his teeth, saying he was going to take a hard look at the budget and they were going to get their spending under control. Bullshit. And then on top of that, it's not just what's happening right now. They're all looking at, we had the CEO of Heritage Distilling on the show a couple weeks ago. And he said, look, we're closing our tasting rooms in the Pacific Northwest, because we're looking at, will this environment improve anytime soon? And he said the answer has to be no. What indication do we have that the business environment in Seattle and Washington State is going to improve anytime soon? He said we don't have any, so we just have to cut our losses. We have to change how we operate as a business, direct to consumer. We've got to close these awesome tasting rooms that people have enjoyed, like including the ones at the stadiums. And we've just got to move on. And once you close, you're not coming back. That's the important thing. Once these businesses close, they're not coming back. Once Amazon moves jobs out of the city, they're not coming back. They're going to invest time and money and infrastructure elsewhere. And they can't trust the city to have any sort of prolonged period of time where they're pro-business, where it's a good environment for businesses. So once you lose them for good. And I think it's significant, the types of businesses that we're seeing close down in Seattle. Because it's all about vilifying big businesses. But as we've spoken many times before, the small businesses rely on the big businesses. So I want to visit a list of, if I could try to get through to Katie Wilson. You say you stand for all these things. You say you want all of this long list of things. And I would appeal to you and ask you, how do you think that punishing successful corporations will help you achieve these things? Let's go through the list of what she wants.
I want everyone in this great city of ours to have a roof over their head. I want stable, affordable housing for renters. I want social housing.
That will cost billions of dollars. Billions of dollars. Who's going to pay for it? Well, it would come from your progressive tax revenues. It would come from taxes on big businesses. But we already know the last time they taxed big businesses with the tax on high-paying jobs, they're already down $150 million below expectations. Why? Because the businesses decided instead of being punished for taxes, we're just going to leave. And so now this big bright idea of a progressive revenue stream, it just went out the window. So who do you think is going to pay for that? What else does she want?
I want universal child care and free K-8 summer care.
It's not free, of course. How are you going to pay for that? Well, through taxes on big businesses. So how are you going to continue to tax big businesses if big businesses aren't here to pay your taxes? How are you going to get these things you want? What else?
I want world-class mass transit.
What I find funny about that one, world-class mass transit, the only job she's really ever had is to be an advocate for transit. Hasn't done a very good job because our transit system sucks. But also, what types of businesses do you think rely most and have their workforce rely most on mass transit? Some of these major tech corporations that you vilify. What else does she want? And this is the key.
I want a robust economy with thriving small businesses.
You want a robust economy with thriving small businesses. Go back to those headlines, Nicole. You want a robust economy with thriving small businesses. Well, small businesses are closing. Small businesses are closing. You say, oh, we'll just tax the big businesses. We'll just tax the successful corporations. What in the holy hell do you think happens when you do that? I've said it a million times. MBAR, where the hell is MBAR? Right in the heart of Amazonia. Who do you think the client for MBAR was? With their $18 drinks. It was the wealthy tech workers. And their jobs are being moved one after another to places that don't treat them the way that you and your ilk treat them. It's an ecosystem. One can't survive without the other. The MBARs of the world can't survive without the tech workers and the Amazon that you hate, that you want to seek out for progressive revenue. They're not going to be here to tax anymore. 33% vacancy rate. 33%. That's apocalyptic. And you go in downtown Seattle and you see it. You walk in the areas of the city that used to be thriving hubs for shopping and entertainment and dining, and there's nothing freaking there anymore. The city can put a lipstick on a pig and they put these art installations. You walk down 4th Avenue, 3rd Avenue, Pike Pine, that whole area, Westlake Park to Pike Place Market. And there used to be thriving businesses and restaurants there. And what is it now? It's either storefronts that are boarded up or that the city came in and put art installations. So it didn't look so bad. But we see that for what it is. It's lipstick on a pig. And it's only going to get worse and worse and worse. And now we have a socialist who comes out and says crazy stuff like they want more land owned by the collective than owned by corporations. They want to seize the means of production. They want to tax big businesses. She's out there first few days on the freaking picket line with Starbucks workers. I mean, kicking a gift horse in the mouth, Starbucks, one of our wonderful corporations. Things are going to go downhill very quickly. And they've already been going downhill. But things are going to get worse and worse and worse. There is no ideas that a socialist mayor has to actually improve the business climate in Seattle. None. And then when you push all this stuff, you pass these progressive tax revenues to pay for your, world-class transit, to pay for your list of wants and free childcare and free blah, blah, and free this and free that. And then the businesses leave, all the money dries up, and then who's going to pay for it? Who's going to pay for all the free things? The working class and the poor. As always. That segment was brought to you in partnership with our friends at Future 42. Turn your frustration into action at future42.org. Make sure you sign up for their newsletter to be alerted to opportunities to do just that. All right, we want to follow up on a story that we broke last week. It gets very spicy. Love it. I still hate it, but it's a weird one because I'm kind of torn on how I feel about it. But there is an elementary school teacher in Shelton, Washington. We had this picture on the show last week where she said that she was forced to put tape over the name Charlie Kirk on a shirt that she was wearing. So she wore it for Veterans Day. It says freedom on it. Of course, Charlie Kirk, when he was assassinated, he had a freedom shirt on. And so this one was sold after his assassination. It says the name Charlie Kirk on it. Now, at the time, the teacher didn't want her name out there because she was worried about retribution, but she really wanted to speak up and say, look, like at a time when they're allowing the BLM stuff and the radical gender ideology and the trans pride flags. She says, I was forced to cover up Charlie Kirk's name because a couple teachers complained that it offended them and it made them uncomfortable. And then she was given this list of rules about political attire, essentially. So they said, your shirt is political in nature. So she didn't want to use her name, but now she does. She's ready to fight for herself, to push back against this. So her name is Trish McCoy. She's a second grade teacher in the Shelton School District. And actually, our friend, Jonathan Cho, bless him, he did a great follow-up on this at Mountain View Elementary. And he actually went out to Shelton to meet with Trish McCoy and to try to confront school officials.
So she was okay with the word freedom and the American flag, but the problem was Charlie Kirk.
Charlie Kirk.
McCoy says the principal asked her to remove the shirt, claiming it violated school guidelines for clothing because it could be interpreted as a political statement.
And I grabbed some tape and I said, I'll just put tape over his name.
No harm, no foul.
And she kind of nodded, okay.
I reached out to Mountain View Elementary Principal Lysandra Ness and District Superintendent Wyeth Jesse, asking if other teachers have been asked to cover up words or symbols on T-shirts that could be interpreted as political.
She's with another teacher?
Yeah.
Okay.
But none of them returned our request for comment. They just posted the statement on social media that reads in part, the district respects employees' First Amendment rights and appreciates the staff members' cooperation. We are reminding staff about state laws and district expectations regarding political expression and trust our employees to follow school board policies that uphold these commitments.
So you believe other teachers want to speak out in support of you, but are afraid to do so?
I think there are some.
Yeah, so other teachers might be afraid to speak out in support of her, but parents sure as hell aren't. So after this story came out, and we did it last week, there was a school board meeting. And I just love this. So there were parents who showed up to speak out against what happened to this teacher, Trish McCoy. Here's one dad.
I saw something that really bothered me today, that apparently a teacher wore a shirt to school, a Charlie Kirk shirt, and apparently was told that it offended people and was made to put tape over the name Charlie Kirk. And I think it is absolutely appalling that we have a school district where if people are offended, we capitulate to them to almost no end, it seems like. Instead of raising students and children and having staff that are resilient and teach our students that they will see things in the world that bother them, that they may not agree with, and having conversations, instead, they capitulate and make this teacher cover up a name of someone whose only hope in this world was to create more dialogue between people, and was assassinated for doing just that, talking. Didn't harm people, said things that people didn't like. And I don't see how I can vote yes on a levy to give more money to people that don't seem to want to actually build resilient students.
I love that argument of building resilient students. And does he look familiar to you, by the way? So that's Donnie. He's been in studio with us before because his child is the trans athlete who played against Frances Stout. Remember this? Frances Stout and Tumwater sat out her final basketball game of the year because there was a biological boy on the other team. That biological boy is Donnie's child, rather. And so I love to see Donnie standing up for this teacher over the Charlie Kirk shirt. And here's another dad.
Going to chat about exactly the same thing. It's in a podcast labeled Unbelievable. Can you believe it? Unbelievable. Who decided that one political or ideology name must be covered up where others are allowed to remain? Who made the call? On what authority? Because that's not education. That's viewpoint discrimination. In a public school, students and teachers should be encouraged to think critically and not be shielded from names or ideas that someone in the administration finds uncomfortable. Once we start censoring one side, we've abandoned fairness, open discourse, and the fundamental principles of education. The board must demand accountability. Who directed that censorship? Why was it done? And what steps will be taken to ensure that it never happens again? Our schools belong to the community, and the truth, transparency, and open exchange of ideas that are not negotiable. Pretty cut and dry. But take a look. Unbelievable, Brandi, Kruse. You guys screwed up. So if that was you, Jesse, good luck.
You guys screwed up. We aired it in our segment Unbelievable last week, so that's what he was referring to. But and look, I said on the show last week when we talked about it, if your rules are consistent, fine. If you've just decided nothing even remotely political, don't do it, we want to keep that, then that's fine. I mean, Shelton is a fairly, I would say, it has pockets of conservatism. I don't know, on the whole, I would call it conservative. But there's plenty of indication that that's not the case. We've heard from teachers in the district who've said that they've, flown trans pride flag stuff. We, have to go back in time to see, but did they allow BLM stuff up in schools, for instance? And as I said, calling Charlie Kirk a political figure, what else would you have to rule out? I mean, could you have something with MLK on it? Could you have something with Supreme Court Justice on it, Ruth Bader Ginsburg or something? Who's a political figure and where do you draw the line? So my whole issue is it seems like they're very quick to try to reel in conservatives, but when it comes to anything else that the left wants to parade around in a public school environment, it's just fine. So we appreciate Trish McCoy being willing to come out, share that story, our friend Jonathan Cho going out there to do some follow-up reporting, and those awesome parents who are standing up to the school board over it. All right, we'll get to our segments. Seattle Times is trash and unbelievable coming up next. It's been a while since we did a Seattle Times is trash story. This one definitely warrants it. First, if you are thinking about selling your home, reach out to our friend Wes Jones at sellwithwes.com. Linda H. did. She's so happy with the results. She said, it was difficult for me to put my trust into a real estate agent only because this was the first home I've sold and I needed it to be handled with care and respect. I interviewed 2 other agencies. Wes's was the third and last. During our first meeting, I knew it was clear this man knew more about how to position my home for a successful sale than the others. We put our home on the market market at one of the worst times of the year, also during a slow market. We had expectations of it taking many months. With Wes and his team's expertise, though, it sold in just under a month. Trusting him was easy. Working with him and his team was a great experience. 5 stars. Love to hear it, Linda. So reach out to our friend Wes Jones. Sellwithwes.com. Sellwithwes.com. Start by using their free home value calculator to see how much your home is worth, and then you can go from there. Sellwithwes.com. It really is a better way to sell your home. With all these things happening, businesses suffering under the weight of record taxes, a new socialist mayor who's only going to make things worse, what are the dogged journalists at the Seattle Times up to? Let's talk about it in our segment. Seattle Times is straight trash. All right. So I just could not believe this was an honest to God news story in the Seattle Times. The headline: we went with Governor Bob Ferguson to the movies to watch Bob Ferguson. So this is a news story in the Seattle Times with one of their news reporters. And it's about how they went to the movies with Bob Ferguson to watch a movie called One Battle After Another. And it features Leonardo DiCaprio, Sean Penn, Regina Hall, and Leonardo DiCaprio's character's name is Bob Ferguson. That's the only, it's not named after our Bob Ferguson. Nope, it just so happens that Leo's name in the movie is Bob Ferguson. So the Seattle Times felt like they needed to dedicate a reporter and an awful lot of time going to sit down and watch this movie with Bob Ferguson. Here's how it reads. Governor Bob Ferguson is a lawyer, a politician, a chess master. He's disciplined and businesslike, a father of teenagers. Another Bob Ferguson is a madcap doofus, a washed-up former domestic terrorist, his memory fried from years of weed and booze, and a father of a teenager. The second Bob Ferguson, as played by Leonardo DiCaprio, is the main character in One Battle After Another, an action-chase comedy that, with violent protests, paramilitary law enforcement, and harrowing immigration roundups, speaks more directly to our political moment than perhaps any movie in recent memory. Good God. What does Governor Bob Ferguson think of fictional DiCaprio's Bob Ferguson? Do they have anything in common? And what does he think of the America the movie portrays? One where dissidents are disappeared, the military raids cities, and children are imprisoned in immigration detention camps. We wanted to find out. First of all, they will try to shoehorn anything to being a story about Donald Trump. And all of a sudden, this fictional movie is not only about Bob Ferguson, because the character is named Bob Ferguson, but it's about Donald Trump and Donald Trump's America. And keep in mind everything that they just said. Paramilitary law enforcement, violent protests, which the left is the only one engaged in violent protests. Dissidents are being disappeared. Where in America are dissidents being disappeared? Here's how much effort the Times put into this. It took 17 emails and more than a month to arrange. But on Tuesday, we met the governor at the Regal Thornton Place at Northgate in Seattle for a late afternoon matinee. He insisted on paying for his own ticket and declined candy and popcorn. Wow. Hard-hitting journalism from the Seattle Times. 17 emails and more than a month to arrange. So they could sit at a movie with Bob Ferguson that's almost 3 hours long. That's really what we want our governor doing, and that's really what we want our journalists doing. So they could watch this movie and publish all these profound quotes from Bob Ferguson about how this fictional movie is very much like modern-day America under the dictator Donald Trump. And you wonder why I always say the Seattle Times is trash. All right, let's follow that up with our segment, Unbelievable. It's really great to see how our statewide elected leaders are spending their time. So Bob Ferguson's at the movie theater, just hanging out with a Seattle Times reporter, and our Secretary of State just cannot seem to stay out of Germany. So we, just before the election, had this story, and our friend Jason Rantz did a great look at it. His headline at the time, as Washington voted, Secretary Steve Hobbs played board games in Germany on the taxpayer's dime. So this was a wild story. So the Secretary of State is the man in charge of our election system. And for several weeks in the lead up to the election, he was in Germany for a board game convention. And he stayed even longer on both ends. The convention was like 3 days or something? He stayed for 4 days on the front end, 4 days on the back end, which, what were you doing? Sounds awful lot like a vacation. They spent $80,000 in taxpayer money on it, but all of that aside, it's the most critical time of the year for the man who runs our elections. Ballots had just gone out, and he wasn't even in the country to deal with any potential issues that might pop up. He got back just like 3 or 4 days before the actual election, which was wild enough. But come to find out, he went back to Germany as ballots were being counted. Steve, what are you doing? The headline, Secretary of State Hobbs quietly slipped back to Germany during Washington's ballot counting. And we had gotten a tip about this, and we'd reached out to the Secretary of State's office for comment, and we recently got an email back to them. So this is about both of these trips. Because Nicole emailed them, and they're like, dude, why be out of the country during arguably the one time of the year where you need to be here? So here's what Secretary of State Steve Hobbs' Director of External Affairs told us. It's important to note that elections in Washington span from when ballots are delivered to military and overseas voters 45 days before Election Day to results certification in early December. Each election is a multi-month effort. The Secretary is regularly assessing and evaluating his activities to best serve Washingtonians across several available avenues, which often requires pivoting between efforts. Let's not lose sight of the fact that after returning from the trade mission, he was out and visiting news stations, including an appearance on your show, talking about the election, telling voters about their return options, and providing insight into what is on the ballot several times before, on, and after Election Day. Secretary Hobbs did return to Germany November 8th at the invitation of the German government. He will be back in Washington November 14th, so he's already back. This email we got late last week. The trip's purpose was to explore ways and means to increase relations and discuss policy between Germany and the United States, focusing on the experiences of Asian communities in the two countries in the Indo-Pacific and the establishment of new transatlantic networks across the hemispheres. I don't care. I don't care what he was doing in Germany. He's the Secretary of State of Washington. I promise he's not pivotal to U.S.-German relations. And there's kind of that excuse in there that, well, our election process is pretty long. It spans a couple months. Are you saying that he can't go anywhere or do anything? Yeah, I am. I am. It's his one job. He wanted the job. He got the job. He's the head of our election system. So at the time when they send ballots out and at the time when ballots are still being counted, no, he shouldn't be in Germany. He shouldn't be in Germany for a board game summit. He shouldn't be in Germany for a trade summit. He shouldn't be in Germany at the invitation of the German government talking about how to build bridges between Asian communities. Shouldn't do it. And it bums me out because Steve Hobbs should know better than that. He's one of the few reasonable Democrats in Olympia. He is pretty moderate. It's the only reason he got that job. His former governor, Jay Inslee, wanted him out of the Senate because he was blocking votes that Jay Inslee cared passionately about. And even if you were going to go to the freaking board game summit, it was 3 days. Do it. Come back. Don't stay and dilly-dally around Germany for 4 days before and 4 days after. And then as soon as the actual election day is done, while ballots are still being counted, head back to Germany. Is there no one else than the Secretary of State of Washington? I'm not saying it's an unimportant job, but I'm sure there's other people who can go on trade missions to Germany. It's just absolutely unbelievable. It's really inexcusable. And I do appreciate him coming on the show. But we had election-related ballot issues that we were trying to talk to him about 2 weeks before he came on the show. And they basically said, he's not available until the 31st. And then he came on the show the Monday before the election. So we had issues that needed to be addressed.
That was including when he told us, don't put it in the drop box. Don't take it to the post office and put it in the box. And it was the day of. So obviously everybody had already done that. But
right.
He was like,
one of the
I
messages
wish I had got that out sooner.
Yes. One of the messages he was trying to get out is there's some issues with the post office. So absolutely it's too late to put it in the USPS box. And it's like, well, wouldn't it have been nice to have you on the show to talk about that 2 weeks ago? But no, you were in Germany at a board game summit. That's just ridiculous. All right, we got to get to some national news. President Donald Trump is just really taking personal petty grievances too far. Mr. President, calm down. First, if you are a small to mid-sized landlord in Washington state, you better buckle up, because if you thought that they were done messing with you in Olympia after they passed rent control, they're never going to be done messing with you. So you need to make sure you have someone in your corner. That is the Rental Housing Association of Washington. They are down there before the session, after the session, during the session, trying to advocate on your behalf to try to stop some of these asinine policies from going into effect or being passed in the first place. So become a member of RHA, rhawa.org. They can also help you on a more personal level, navigate the existing rules, regulations, and laws if you have any questions. So it's a good resource. And then also, if you're interested in housing policy at all, even if you're not a landlord, you are invited. You are cordially invited to join RHA's 2025 Holiday Gala, which is coming up on December 13th. It's really cool. They're having like an ice theme, and they really go all out. In fact, I got a picture from Sean Flynn at the RHA. They're bringing in full-size human igloos. I kind of love it. I love it. I love when people are extra for holiday parties. You can sign up to go to that, rhawa.org, rhawa.org. All right, some national news. I'm so over the Epstein stuff. I'm so over it. And I'm not trying to diminish what young women went through. This has been like a decade-long or more thing. Epstein is dead. I mean, first of all, I think they should release all of the Epstein files they have. There's really no reason at this point not to. So absolutely release the Epstein files. But can we please stop treating Democrats like they actually care about Epstein's victims and Epstein's crimes? All of a sudden they're like, release the Epstein files, because they just pray upon a prayer that it somehow means something bad for Donald Trump, not because any fiber of their being actually cares about the victims of Jeffrey Epstein. So let's just get past that, right? But at the same time, some of Trump's posturing around the Epstein files has been weird to me, but he did a little gaggle with reporters on Air Force One over the weekend, and he says that he does believe the Epstein files should be released. Here's what he put out on Truth Social. As I said Friday night aboard Air Force One to the fake news media, House Republicans should vote to release the Epstein files because we have nothing to hide, and it's time to move on from this Democrat hoax perpetrated by radical left lunatics in order to deflect from the great success of the Republican Party. And then he goes on to list some accomplishments, et cetera, et cetera. He said nobody cared about Jeffrey Epstein when he was alive. If the Democrats had anything, they would have released it before our landslide election victory. Some members of the Republican Party are being used, and we can't let that happen. Let's start talking about the Republican Party's record-setting achievements and not fall into the Epstein trap, which is actually a curse on the Democrats, not us. Make America great again. So I have a lot of thoughts. There are things in there he's saying that are absolutely true. This is only about, at this point, Democrats wanting to find some dirt on Donald Trump, or even if there's no dirt on Donald Trump, trying to use tiny little things like they did last week, pull out individual emails among thousands and pretend that they prove some sort of wrongdoing on the part of Donald Trump, which they don't. And as he said, literally, if anything existed that implicated Donald Trump in the Jeffrey Epstein trafficking of young women, you don't think in the last 10 years, when they've thrown everything they can throw at this man, that it would have been out there? You don't think it would have been out there? Of course it would have. There is literally nothing left on this man to put out there. There's nothing. So this is all about Democrats. And I think what he's maybe inartfully trying to say is Republicans are playing into the hand of Democrats who are now trying to make this big thing of Epstein when they never cared before. But either way, put out the files. So one of these Republicans who he's saying basically is playing into the hands of Democrats is his former friend, maybe not so much anymore, Marjorie Taylor Greene. And she's been in the news a lot lately because she's been making the rounds on like CNN. She went on The View and being kind of critical of Trump and Republicans and saying Republicans aren't able to get anything done. And she's been, a big supporter of releasing the Epstein files in their entirety. And Donald Trump is not happy with her. He posted, "Wacky Marjorie Trader Brown," remember, green turns to brown when there is rot involved, is working overtime to try and portray herself as a victim when, in actuality, she is the cause of all her own problems. The fact is, nobody cares about this traitor to our country. Marjorie Taylor Greene went on CNN to respond to the president's comments.
I do support him and his administration, and I support them in delivering the campaign promises we made to the American people. His remarks, of course, have been hurtful. However, I have something in my heart that I think is incredibly important for our country, and that is to end the toxic fighting in politics. And this has been going on for years, and it has divided our country, split up friends and families, neighbors, and it's not solving our problems. The most hurtful thing he said, which is absolutely untrue, is he called me a traitor, and that is so extremely wrong. And those are the types of words used that can radicalize people against me and put my life in danger.
What do you think?
I agree. I mean, I don't, it's too harsh, and it's not helpful. And I know she's been making the rounds on Democrat media. There's sort of a feeling that rumors that she wanted to run for Senate and Trump didn't approve of it. And so she kind of went off on this tangent criticizing Republicans. So I don't think she's being particularly helpful at a time when the Trump administration is achieving a lot of things that it promised to the American people. But to call her a traitor when she really was, even at his lowest, when he was like no one would touch or associate with him after January 6th, 2021, she's always had his back. And so I think to call her a traitor, and I don't like it. I don't like any of it. And then this was even worse. His attacks on Thomas Massie, I don't understand. This one was so personal. And Massie has never been like a reliable Republican vote. He's always gone more off on the libertarian end of things, especially when it comes to spending, et cetera, et cetera. Here's what he said about Thomas Massie. This one really bothered me. Did Thomas Massie, sometimes referred to as Rand Paul Jr. because of the fact, do we have this, Nicole? Did Thomas Massie, sometimes referred to as Rand Paul Jr. because of the fact that he always votes against the Republican Party, get married already? Boy, that was quick. No wonder the polls have him at less than an 8% chance of winning the election. Anyway, have a great life, Thomas, and ? His wife will soon find out that she's stuck with a loser. His wife died. Like, his wife was ill. She died tragically. He got married like a year and a half later to someone who he had known for many years. And that's just a disgusting thing to say. And if I can't call that out, even though I voted for Trump and I like Trump, then what good am I? I just don't get it. It's so counterproductive. And it's this sort of, Donald Trump really values loyalty. And I think that became clear, especially after his first term. And I'm fine with that. But I don't think any of this is helpful. And he's saying Marjorie Taylor Greene is being unhelpful to Republicans by kind of going on CNN and all these things and talking about Republicans aren't getting anything done. But is this helpful to Republicans? Is this helpful to Republicans at all? I don't think so. So it's just too much sometimes. It really is. We're going to get to that in our daily subscriber show poll coming up. But first, I've got to talk about Nicki Minaj really quick. So Nicki Minaj all of a sudden is this wonderful voice for persecuted Christians. So she, Ambassador Mike Walls, came out and he said Nicki Minaj is not only arguably the greatest female recording artist, but also a principled individual who refuses to remain silent in the face of injustice. I'm grateful she's leveraging her massive platform to spotlight the atrocities against Christians in Nigeria. And I look forward to standing with her as we discuss the steps the president and his administration are taking to end the persecution of our Christian brothers and sisters. And she's like going to come out and give a speech about this, which I think is awesome. She retweeted him and said, Ambassador, I'm so grateful to be entrusted with an opportunity of this magnitude. I do not take it for granted. It means more than you know. The Barbs and I will never stand down in the face of injustice. We've been given our influence by God. There must be a bigger purpose. And I think this is fantastic. And, if a voice like hers can be elevated to help the persecuted Christians in Nigeria who are being murdered, then I think that's wonderful. So I thought that was an interesting thing. And we'll follow up on it after she gives this speech and see how that goes for her. All right. Nicole, do we have a show poll ready by any chance? Okay, let's talk about this. I asked you guys in our daily show poll on Patreon, Locals, and X if you think President Trump has taken personal attacks against Marjorie Taylor Greene too far. Yes, no, or not familiar with the story. Most of you said you're not familiar with the story. So now you're familiar with the story. So you can even go back and change your vote if you want to. I don't know if you knew that. You can change your vote as much as you want. But 38% said yes. Tiffany, Trump reminds me of Happy Gilmore, quick to throw a temper tantrum when someone disagrees with him, and then he makes nice. Ron DeSanctimonious comes to mind, and now he's DeSantis's ally. So I feel like this is another row amongst themselves. The next week he'll be saying, MTG is a wonderful lady, just one of the best. It is true that he said some pretty vicious things about people who now are an ally.
Oh, like Elon.
Like Marco Rubio.
That was quite the, oh yeah, Rubio. Yep.
Yeah, but calling someone a traitor is pretty messed up. Nicole, what do you say? Yes, no, we're not familiar.
Oh yeah, that was silly.
It's too silly.
She's been pretty good to him. She's a little wacky. He's a little wacky. I don't know. That was silly.
It's some schoolyard stuff.
It is
schoolyard bullying.
It's a distraction, and maybe that's exactly it. Maybe that's a distraction for him because he's getting a little bit of criticism right now because now people want him to focus more on us and the economy and getting things together here because he's been focusing so much on the world and the people that like him around the world, and so now he's got to focus his self back on here.
Yeah, and then there was also MTG and Thomas Massey both had threats over the weekend, which is not acceptable because this is the environment we're trying to stop. And when you make when you call someone a traitor to their country, I mean, you're going to set off unhinged people. It's the same when they're like fascist and all of this, and you get people believing this is a fascist, and then they're going to go take care of the problem. But you're calling her a traitor. And people have so much loyalty to you. You have to know what those words mean. Let's see. Dynamo said, I'm sorry, but yes, he is petty and vindictive and has no integrity or loyalty. Just look at the voting records of those he goes after for not being in complete lockstep with him versus the American people, and then look at who he does support and endorse and their voting record says all you need to know. UF88, they are on the same side. They need to make up. Todd Welch, Donald Trump is too thin-skinned. He argues down to the level of the opponent. I agree. I think all fair criticisms of our beloved president of the United States. Don't come after me now, Donald. You already called me very attractive. Very attractive. And what if he takes it back? Because now I've criticized him. He's going to say, I never thought she was attractive.
Traitor.
I thought she's ugly. She's hideous and her hair is horrible. That would really hurt my feelings. Please don't say anything about my hair. All right, with talk of an AI bubble, are you concerned with the risk exposure of your retirement portfolio? Are you confident with how it's positioned for 2026? Are you like Brandi, I have no idea? Well, that might be a good sign to get in touch with our friend Zach Abraham at Bulwark Capital. And in fact, on November 20th, so just 3 short days from now, he's having his final live webinar of the year. It's his review preview live webinar. He'll discuss the impact AI is having on the market, do a preview for 2026, talk about how critical Bulwark's deployment of value investing is to retirement portfolios, plus a full reveal of how Bulwark is always looking for opportunities to lower risk, lower cost, and give your retirement as much upside as possible. So I would start there with the free review preview live webinar. Go to knowyourriskpodcast.com. It's really easy to sign up. There'll be a little pop-up in the middle of the screen. You can sign up for it totally for free. And then there's a couple other things you can do. You can schedule your own free Know Your Risk portfolio review, so more of a one-on-one with Zach and his team. And you can subscribe to Zach's daily market recap at knowyourriskpodcast.com. And of course, don't forget weekly episodes of Swamp Watch with Zach. We've got a new one coming out tonight. We're going to talk about socialism, and those 50-year mortgages Trump is talking about. What does Zach think of 50-year mortgages? We had a good conversation about it. So knowyourriskpodcast.com, knowyourriskpodcast.com. All right, you bunch of hooligans. Had a fun live Q&A with subscribers last night, so appreciate subscribers making the time to join me on a Sunday evening. I always do it with no makeup on in my spare bedroom/office, and nobody ever says, Brandi, you look like shit. Brandi, why aren't you wearing makeup?
Well, I would
You
hope
all
not.
love me the way I am, and I appreciate that. Thank you. All right, Katie's first couple days in office on the strike lines. The Griffins, Starbucks should close all stores that strike. I'd be like, hey, I'm closing it, not because of the strike, but low performing store. It's got to close.
Well, they've done that a few times, I believe. So.
And then they over public safety issues and all of that. Yep. Mm-hmm. Papa Woody says, get her on the show, Brandi. We are going to try to get Katie Wilson on the show. So, you know, if she says that this is our city, all of us, right? So if she wants to appeal to, and she acts like, I should have pulled the clip, but she said she has like a mandate from voters. Bro, you won by like 2,000 votes. That's not a mandate. You barely won. And so half of voters, and voters only account for 40% voted in this election. So a small segment of the city, relatively speaking, voted for you. So let's not act like that's a mandate. Sherry, maybe Katie Wilson's parents can pay for all her wants. Yeah, maybe mommy and daddy can keep footing the bill.
I wonder if they move here and want to. Well, do they live in New York? Is that where? No, I don't think they live in New York City. They live somewhere on the East Coast.
No, they live in New York State.
They live somewhere over there. But do they want to live under socialism? I wonder, and have all their money taken?
I don't know. Isn't it interesting how people who got rich off capitalism then try to instill socialism for other people?
Right.
It's weird, but you got rich off capitalism, so don't you want people to benefit from capitalism? All right, RM Colm, the activists target Starbucks by getting jobs there. Yeah, the activists go get jobs at Starbucks so they can strike and throw a fit. On Seattle workers considering a general strike, Lil Miss J, this sounds similar to what extreme leftists say they are preparing for in a national strike in the future. Gosh, this is just the beginning and more is coming soon. We have video evidence. And again, why wouldn't you? I'm going to get paid to go on strike. They're going to have no leverage. So we're going to get all our wants and desires because they have nothing to hold over our head, to get us to the bargaining table. It's going to be a nightmare. It's going to be a nightmare. Stop voting for Democrats. Good God. Sounds like Washington State is about to close down again due to the strikes. By the way, gas is $2.35 here a gallon in Nebraska. There wasn't a name by that one, but so sorry, it's not in my show sheet. Big Princess, we should be able to tie teacher compensation to test scores, because why should we pay them more when students are failing further and further behind? That should be an element of it. Should be. Why do you look so small over there? Sit up, Nicole.
No, I'm trying to get on screen. It looks like my camera got moved over, so I'm trying to get over a little bit, but I'm kind of trying to sit over a little bit.
I'll go like this.
I don't think I look small. I might look far away.
Short.
Definitely. My head looks bigger than yours, so I don't think I look small.
Well, maybe you just have a big old head. I don't know. I can't fix that. Let's see. Egir Litchi. What will the state do when state unemployment funds run out, when so many workers strike at once? Good question. They'll tax us. They'll find some way. They'll make people contribute more to it. Amanda,
won't that be a disaster if they don't have any funds to pay people who are actually in need of unemployment?
Yeah. Amanda Chang, Dems are going to raise our taxes again to add funds to the unemployment because of these strikes. 100%. Well, they're going to increase the amount that businesses have to pay toward the unemployment insurance fund. On the continued business fallout in Seattle, Old Sub Sailor, progressive fundraising, hooey. Seattle is going to go broke. D-Man in Seattle, they don't care businesses are leaving. They love having everyone on welfare, either high-paid, easy jobs for everyone or endless welfare. They don't care. On the Kirk shirt controversy, Mighty Mouse girlfriend, thank you, parents. Yes, I love that Donnie was one of them. If you're not familiar, we had Donnie on with his son who identifies as a girl. And, he made it clear he's conservative and all of this. It was just an interesting, fascinating thing.
Right. And I think that child has graduated, but he has two younger ones as well. And so
he does.
That's why he was there to say, I'm not supporting this levy.
We're just creating a wussy environment. The shirt is triggering to you. Get a life.
I think it's their superintendent is from Seattle schools. Oh. So that's why this has been a thing. And so I've been hearing a lot of things out of the Shelton district. Yeah. And so I think that a lot of parents were happy to get some coverage because they've been feeling very, very isolated out there. Yeah. And that particular teacher called me after the show and said, I feel free.
Good.
And I was like, oh.
Good. Speaking out is great. Alexis Brooke, raise kids to accept that not everyone agrees and to respect opposing viewpoints as long as those viewpoints aren't harming anyone. I agree. Words are not violence. Get a grip. Andy Stevens says the parents are where change will be made. Yes, parents standing up and speaking up for what's right.
It is freeing. That's the only way to make change.
Yeah, 100%. On the Seattle Times story, going to the movies with Bob Ferguson. Oh, God. Weisscastle, the Seattle Times interview of Governor Ferguson was a freaking bromance. I mean, how can you take a reporter seriously? It was just come to the movies.
Can you imagine sitting there especially when he said no to candy and popcorn. So then you feel like you can't have candy and popcorn either. So then you just have to just
sit with Bob Ferguson. I mean, honestly, he should win a Pulitzer for having to sit with Bob Ferguson for 3 hours. Right. Let's see. Eric Bath, the Seattle Times has the Bob Fergusons switched up, the description of the Bob Fergusons. Mm-hmm. That's funny. Hobbs being back in Germany, James Nice. I'm personally getting tired of the total lack of respect that we must deal with. Old subsailor, both of Hobbs' trips at taxpayers' expense. Double boondoggle. A couple super chats to fit in. Andy Silly, what's the most infuriating story of the day? I was told twice yesterday I say the word infuriating wrong. They say I put an extra syllable in it. So apparently, like, you say it.
Infuriating.
So you do it too.
I think I do it too, yeah.
Infuriating.
Infuriating.
I don't understand what I'm saying wrong.
Infuriating.
And you know what? I don't appreciate you guys making fun of my regional dialect, okay?
Terrible.
But that's very funny, Andy. Very funny. I'm working on it. Let's see. Matt, $10 super chat. Speaking of celebrating Matt's, yesterday was Matt Cook's birthday. So make sure to wish him a happy birthday. Okay, we'll do that momentarily. Papa Woody says, hit that like button and do the show poll, homies. Yes, please do that.
Yes,
Lil Miss J, quick question. What did Nicole cook this weekend? Anything special?
Well,
we were thinking about starting a Nicole and Miranda cooking show.
Love it. Well, we went to a couple of fundraisers this weekend for
Yes.
police officers and canine police officers. So I didn't have to do a lot of cooking, but I did make dinner for my parents, whose anniversary is today.
Oh, that's
yesterday.
nice.
So I made kind of like an Alfredo from scratch.
Oh, very
Yeah.
fancy. That's good. And now people are telling me Miranda, I always correct Miranda her grammar. So she's in the chat urging people to correct my grammar because she really wants payback. All right. Matt, I'll sing to you at the end of the show because you didn't ask for it. Somebody else did. So, but at the end of the show, All right. And then we'll get to our closing sanity check. But first, Valentine Roofing, our wonderful show sponsors, have just been awarded the best roofing company in the Pacific Northwest for the third year in a row. We only have the best here on Undivided. When you see that red Valentine van at your neighbor's house, you know they're getting the Valentine experience, no matter what they're getting done. Custom holiday lights, a new roof, getting their gutters cleaned, some exterior cleaning. No matter what it is, you're going to get seamless communication, meticulous cleanup, and a team that always goes the extra mile. And with flexible financing options, including 0 down and 0% interest, taking care of your home has never been easier. So schedule your free estimate by calling 206 Roofing. Again, 206 Roofing. Please tell them you heard about them on Undivided. So whether you just need them to take a look at your roof, maybe you've got a leak, they're going to come in. If they can fix it, they will. If not, they'll repair it and then schedule time to get your roof replaced or any of those other services, including custom holiday lights. Great time of the year to do that. So 206 Roofing, 206 Roofing. And with that, let's get to our closing sanity check. So we'll play a clip of it on the show tomorrow, but if you haven't watched it yet, our Sundays with Subscribers interview was fantastic. We spoke with a woman named Trinh Ha. Her family escaped communism in Vietnam, and the stories she tells about what it's like to live under communism. And of course, communism is what comes after socialism, and now we're engaged in socialism in 2 major American cities. And so her story is really a warning to people who think that what happens in communist nations can't and won't happen here. Someone else issuing a similar warning is Bill Maher.
Here's capitalist South Korea at night from space. Here's socialist North Korea. Yeah. In 1990, Venezuela was wealthier than Poland. But then Poland, finally free of Soviet-style economics, went all in on capitalism. And now their economy is as big as Japan. And people there have high wages, low inflation, cars, vacations, homes. Meanwhile, Venezuela traded capitalism for Hugo Chavez's Socialism for the 21st Century, which turned out to be like socialism in the last century, or any century, a f***ing mess. It turned one of Latin America's richest countries into one of its poorest. Low wages, high inflation, shortages, outages, 8 million people fleeing. If you think New York can somehow reinvent this wheel, you're in for a rude awakening. Zoran can't make your wishes come true. You're thinking of Zoltar.
Love it. Socialism has never worked, and it never will. That has been our closing sanity check. That has been today's episode of Undivided. will play me out with a little happy birthday music. But first, if you have not signed up to support our show, it's $5 a month. We're growing by the day thanks to people like you. It helps us bring more content to you. And we're also hiring Miranda full-time in the new year to help us get more of a reach on social media. More eyeballs on our content means more eyeballs on Common Sense and Sanity. So we need your help. You can sign up, undividedpod.com. Go ahead, Nicole. Undividedpod.com. Click on the banner that says support the show. Matthew Cook, this one is for you. Special rendition of Undivided for our friend Matthew Cook. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you, Matthew Cook. That's a good one, right? I like it. I think it was fine. That's really all I got. See you back here, same time, same place tomorrow.